Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving us your time today for VR Gamescast. I'm Ian Hamilton in New York, joined by Don Hopper in Missouri, and Beck in Canada, broadcasting the show for us today as we discuss all the ways people play in VR. We're wearing a Quest 3 and we're using David Heaney's VR Studios with hand tracking and meta avatars. Our audio is routed externally through an external microphone this week, so hopefully you will notice a difference for the better, hopefully, in our audio quality this week. We've got a tablet in front of us that shows us live comments, so if you have any questions about VR, put it out there in our community. Might be able to help you, and we'll try to get to your comment over the course of the show. You can listen to us on your podcast platform of choice, and you can become a member of UploadVR.com to support our work directly. Don, what do we have today?
No, Ian, as usual, we have a packed show today. So we're going to be covering a lot of topics. We're going to be covering the psychedelic Ely world of Thrasher. We're going to be relaxing in zero G with Solara One. We're going to be talking a little bit about one of, I know, your favorite games, Walkabout Mini Golf's new Wallace and Gromit course. We're going to obviously see the next three worlds in my VRChat spotlight. And then we're going to kind of take a trip into the Radius and look at Into the Radius 2. And then we're going to do something that I had a ton of fun playing with the last couple of weeks. We're going to watch me drive a real RC car from my Quest 3. And then we're going to round it out by taking a look at the new Alien Rogue Incursion protagonist reveal trailer.
Yeah, awesome lineup here for us to get into today. Looking on all our comments, we've got members Biggs and a couple others up here. Let me scroll up here. Tuned in Ryan as well. And thank you
Paradise
so
Decay.
much to,
Yeah,
to Arlen's
great.
comment of support and all these people that have been watching us for a really long time. I noticed after I think we added some members after our last show, and it means a lot when we see those members join us, support our work directly. And we had some comments from some of our members looking, suggesting some really cool ideas for how we can add more benefits to membership over time. It's one of these
Yeah.
things that it's going to take a long, it's going to be a long methodical process for us to add those additional benefits. But we've got some really cool ideas we've been messing around with today to try to get that up and running. But why don't we get right into this first bit of news with Thrasher. Don, you
Yeah.
played Thrasher. What did you
I
think?
have. Oh man, okay. So first of all, I loved Thumper, the game that came before it, and I love the trippy, weird, psychedelic side of VR more than just about anything. I love visually rich experiences, and Thrasher is definitely that. So, in the game, it is a rhythm puzzle game. So you're actually using your hand to swipe. You kind of guide this eel, and you're kind of moving through obstacles and trying to hit the rings. And it's just one of those. There's no prologue. There's no introductory cutscene. You just drop right in and figure it out. And there's just music and visuals. It's just a full package.
Yeah, I know our audience is probably looking for some of those Apple Vision Pro impressions. I haven't had a chance to boot this up on my Vision Pro yet and give it a comparison of Quest versus Vision Pro because I imagine the OLED screen or the true black backgrounds in some of these scenes is really going to pop and
Oh
help on the
yeah.
Apple Vision Pro. And I'm seeing a lot of people in our audience that are really have been looking for this game. They love the original games this studio has done, and they're really looking forward to checking this one out. So. We put our review out on this, and what was cool about this is just the simultaneous release on both platforms, right? It is a big deal. You can count almost on one hand, I think, the number of studios that have been able to do that. I think this is almost the
Very
first
few.
example or the second example of a simultaneous release on Apple Vision Pro and MetaQuest. Kind of a big deal to have
And
that
it
arrive.
shows the developers are starting to take that platform a little more seriously. I mean, we are going to start to see more of these style, and especially this style of game, released on the Vision Pro. And for something like Thumper or Thrasher, they make perfect sense for that platform.
I like Arlen's question here. Where in the metaverse did Don go this week? Yes, that is what we have been
Well,
sending Don around to
mhm.
discover all the corners of the metaverse that he can discover. And I can't wait to hear about this next subject. I think we should probably move on pretty quickly in this episode because
Yeah, not much to say about Thrasher. I mean, it's a very cool game. I highly encourage you guys to check it out.
yeah.
If you love visuals and music, you're gonna love this.
Yeah, so Trippy VR really gets you moving in a very different way. Go check it out. But let's talk about Solara One because this one was really, really neat. And we put the video up there. We've got an article from you, and your passion for this project came across so much in your write-up. It really seemed to nail exactly what you're looking for in VR in a really powerful way. Why don't you walk through
Yeah,
what that is and why that is?
absolutely. So I, ever since I was a child, I have been fascinated by space. Anything space, 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 space. So obviously, as gaming and VR entered my life, I've always gravitated towards space games. And there's a kind of an overarching theme with most space based titles, and they're always going to either have some sort of, overarching story or a huge grind but sometimes you just want to go in and you just want to see beautiful scenery. You just want to experience the tranquility and calm of what it might be like after you get past the terror of floating in zero G above a planet or a space station. And Solar One gives us that. So you start out on Earth and you kind of just very short sequence. You make yourself through this jungle and you call the space taxi and it takes you up to the spaceport. And Spaceport is really cool, almost a museum atmosphere in there. Lots of interactive exhibits where you kind of learn a little bit about the world of Solara One and the ship that you're about to go to. And then you make your way to the second level and you find these decks that are just overlooking some of the most beautiful skyscape that I have ever seen in virtual reality. These volumetric clouds are just bubbling and moving in ways that just really kind of brought me to a moment of presence, just staring out at them. But the intent of those is that you have these set of crystals and you can grab them, and each crystal has a different form of guided meditation or a relaxation or breathing exercise that you can do. Now, after you've done all that, you then step into a transporter and you're transported into a kind of a huge space station ship thing. Now, when you get there, there's not a lot to do inside the ship, but all of a sudden, you've got this tablet similar to what we have in front of us, and 5 different spacewalks appear, and you get to leave the ship. And I tell you what, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about when I refer to the overview effect, but astronauts refer to this often, that it is just this immense feeling of smallness as you float above the planet. And I've had that sensation in VR before, but never to the scale that I got in Solar One. Something about the scale of the planet, the way that everything is just, it is just an awe-inspiring moment. And I cannot get enough of this game. So if you want a space game that's going to give you something that's a little different, you gotta try this.
Yeah, I'm seeing our commenters still talking about Thrasher before. Inferno Nine's comment, Thrasher is really cool. The movement is like you're flying a kite, like there's a string connected to the thing. It doesn't instantly move, it's like you're tugging on it. It sounds like
Mm-hmm.
that's a very clever way of getting around some of the limitations of hand tracking. There could be a real disconnect
Ah,
sometimes between what you're doing and the interaction. Like for instance, if you go to a much lower quality hand tracking system, that might still feel pretty solid because of the way it
it kind
disconnects
of
what you're
hides the
doing.
lag a little bit. Yeah, I
Yeah.
could see that.
But Solara One, yeah, the response from readers was and viewers was really positive. I think people really keyed in on exactly what you keyed on here. The game that produced that for me, and it did it in a different way, was Titans of Space. That
Yes.
seemed to me like the closest analog to some of what you get out of Solar One. Like I guess Titans of Space is a little bit geared more towards the educational aspect of it, but I still got that overview effect.
Mhm.
Gosh, even going back to, I think it was the HD prototype that it really got me. I tried it on like a DK1 or DK2 way back in the day,
Wow.
and then they put it on a HD prototype for me at a conference, and I'm like, I really want to see this one Titans of Space experience. And sure enough, you get the scale of the sun, you get the scale of the Earth, and you go through them. You get this nice, haunting, sort of vibey music that really places you in that world. And it seems like Solara One dialed in all of those feelings to just 11, right, on this
They
experience to
really
bring it
got it
up.
right, and I think you brought up the word there, scale. So okay, one thing, like I love Elite Dangerous. I played that game for the better part of almost 10 years now. I've never felt like when I'm coming up on a planet that the scale of that planet felt as immense to me as it should. And I think that those triggers of scale really help our minds to kind of bring that overview effect into reality.
Hmm. Yeah, very, very powerful one. And I'm seeing people mention Mission
Ah,
ISS
hmm.
as well as another experience that could use an update and keep us going. Yeah, I think us VR old timers forget how formative Titans was to us, and we forget to show to the newbie normies.
I would
Yeah,
love to
I,
see it updated. Oh, that would be
I,
just amazing.
I've got to, yeah, I would love to see it added. You know, if you did Titans of Space very early on, the developer actually did do quite a bit. I think there's even hand tracking support in there.
Yes.
So they've done a lot of effort behind the scenes to update that project and get it up to speed. And if you've got a, yeah, it is one of those go-to first timer experiences still for me today in VR. If you want to explain what VR does beyond gaming, Titans of Space or even now Solara One is going to be a good suggestion for people because we I see it in our comments. People are still getting used to the idea that we're doing games on Tuesday and then
Yes.
we've got VR download on Thursday. Is that a kitty? Did I hear a kitty? Hi,
I hear
kitty.
kitties. I hear kitties. Oh,
Okay.
that's our
Well, there's
producer's
kitties out
kitty.
there. I don't know if our audience can hear the kitties, but we hear
Probably not.
kitties, and I hope those kitties get their food. Um,
No, I
but
just want to say, oh, real quick, I was going to say the best part in Titans of Space, because we were talking about scale, is, and I don't know if you got the same immensity when you start seeing the different suns as you're going
mhm.
from our sun to the next largest sun, and when you finally get out to like Betelgeuse and the very very large, and you realize just how small our sun is in comparison, it's insane.
Yep, and Marcellus Wilson, sorry, mentioning, I'll never forget looking up at Uranus from a moon in red matter too.
Yes.
Yeah, similar things, moments of sheer awe. You see, we'll get into it next with Walkabout Mini Golf, but when the developers really plan those moments when you're exiting from one space and then going into another, and then shocking you with scale or something unexpected in the new room that you go to, it has such a powerful, profound, absolutely impossible for you to see shifting from one room to another in the physical universe. Inferno 9, we're a speck in the universe, and yep, that's the overview effect. And
Pale
I
blue dot.
yep, little blue dot, and so many years of so many people that have tried to
Ooh.
convey that inspiration to us through the classic mediums, right? You've got Carl Sagan that did that beautiful book Contact, and great movie, and went on Tonight Show, and you have this modern what's his name, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who would go on Tonight Shows and make all this effort to popularize science, popularize space travel. And I feel like VR does a lot of that work for them, right? When you really nail the scale situation, you can open up a lot of brains to the idea that
Big time.
we need to be thinking on a larger scale about ourselves and our impact on one another and the universe. And yeah, it opens your brain to a lot of ideas. I think we're ready to talk about Walkabout Mini
I
Golf
think
here
so.
pretty soon. Are there any comments you want to respond to before we
Yeah,
bring that up?
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with the comment. Obviously we've got Rick McHelmet talking about the game kitties, so you gotta have game kitties. I know I have two of my own. I think how many do you have?
I have 4 cats in this
4,
house.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
And
all cat lovers here. So
yeah,
very good. Space is awesome, obviously. Yes, space is awesome. Virtual space is also equally as awesome for those of us who are probably never going to be able to experience the real thing. Thank goodness we have virtual reality.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I remember my best friend since junior high. We've been obsessed since then. It was space, right? I designed little fact about me. I designed space stations in high school. That was
oh,
how
nice.
that was my nerdiest group ever. And we went to NASA headquarters. We got selected for finalists to go to this like finalist competition
What's
for
dinner
designing
for?
the best space station throughout the 4 years of high school. And it was an amazing experience to think of what would it take to put 30,000 people in orbit around Mars and keep them sustained and happy. And it's been what, more than 20 years since then, and I a lot of those things that I did back imagining what a space station like needed in order to give a person all the things that they get out of home, it actually helped me a little bit with VR because like one of the ideas on space stations is people need their sunrises, people
Yeah.
need their stars, they need to not feel cooped up all the time. And you would imagine simulating giant screens on the wall to give people the illusion that they're actually on Earth or they're actually seeing an endless horizon instead of just a blank wall. And
Holodeck.
VR headsets, right? And the holodeck
Yeah.
itself. The holodeck
It's the
itself was
purpose of
this
it. I
idea.
mean, that's the
Yeah.
purpose of the holodeck, even on in a fictional ship like the Enterprise, is because they couldn't stay cooped up all the time.
Yep.
They had to have those experiences and go stretch their legs, even though they couldn't.
Yep. So we've got Mighty Coconut, the developers of Walkabout Mini Golf, here in our comments, and we've got Wallace here with one of the Walkabout Mini Golf developers over here, looking at Wallace. And Beck, why don't we show the well, if we can we
I was
show
gonna say, I think we
the
had the video here.
yeah?
Okay, hold
Okay,
on. I
so
think I can do it from YouTube because we have that up on our YouTube site.
yeah, so I'll have
So
Don try to pull up our tour
let's see
video. If
here.
those of you aren't familiar that we do this, we've
Ian,
a
could
couple
you
years
take that off the screen?
here. I'll take it off the screen. So people that aren't familiar, for a couple years now, we've been meeting with the devs of Walkabout Mini Golf, the devs at Mighty Coconut, having them give us a tour of these new courses as they've been running them. I guess we're not able to pull up videos this week, so let's just go back to
Yeah.
the still image for now. It's fine. You can obviously go find that tour video on our channel. It's just a few back with 2 developers from Mighty Coconut giving us a tour throughout this entire course. I stopped the video at hole number 17 because the developers at Mighty Coconut were very, very nervous about showing off hole 18 to people that didn't want the spoiler. There is
Mhm.
a fairly good spoiler there if you're a big Wallace and Gromit fan to see what is happening on hole 18 after you do this course. The developers, so for the folks that aren't familiar with this studio, with this game, what are you doing in VR? I would like to know if you aren't familiar with that. But for those of you that aren't familiar, they've made Labyrinth, inspired by the Jim Henson movie from the 1980s. They made a course for that. They've got Myst, the 1990s game from Cyan. They have a course built for that where they've gone and partnered with Cyan to build a course inspired by Myst. Next year, they're going to be building a course called Viva Las Elvis. So they've partnered
Awesome.
with the namesake, the people who have the rights to Elvis Presley's name, and now they're going to build a course that is basically taking you through the iconography of Elvis, giving you the sense of going to this Vegas version of Elvis's life and playing through 18 holes that would have been inspired by, I guess, his songs or his personality. We'll have to see how they realize it. And there is Jules Verne courses in there, so you can go see courses inspired by those classic stories. And what I see in so much of Mighty Coconut's work and Walkabout Mini Golf's work is that it very much feels like when I go and do these tours, it's like I've got Walt Disney himself giving me a tour of a new land as it opened inside of a Disney park. And that's kind of how I view these tours. Is I'm silent. I let the devs speak for themselves and give me this tour of this location, and it comes across that I'm a first-time viewer in these worlds as I go on this tour, and they give me this little guided tour. But it goes further than that to me. This sense of them being a modern day Disney. The one of the tour guides on this one is Don Carson. He's a former Imagineer, and he's a fan of Walkabout Mini Golf, who just reached out to the developers one day and said, you know, the work you do is very, very similar to theme park design. And yes, exactly. What they've done is when you go into these courses, you see a theme park version of a property that was too expensive and wouldn't make enough money for anyone to justify building a course that represents that property, right? You can go to Universal Studios and find what Mario Brothers and all sorts of other movie properties that are associated with that brand. You can go to Disneyland and see properties that are all inspired by those movies that Disney has made over the years. But in this situation with Walkabout Mini Golf and these devs, they're partnering with properties and organizations that, for a large part, they've been left in the cold by Disney's of the world, the Universal Studios of the world, who don't see the overlap between what they're doing and what some of these smaller companies are doing. Except there are a lot of fans out there who love the movie Labyrinth. There's a lot of fans out there that love Wallace and Gromit, and it would have been just too expensive and had too few people in a specific one location in the world to go and visit the Wallace and Gromit park. And if you go watch our video where we've got Don Carson, the former Imagineer, commenting to us on what they're doing, he specifically says in that video, I think it's extremely important what he said to us. He has a comment in that video, just a few minutes into this tour, where he's saying, as Walkabout Mini Golf, as Mighty Coconut has partnered with various properties, they found that creative people have fantasized and thought about having a mini golf course, a theme park version of their properties for a very, very long time. But like I said, they've been left out without a way to do this. And here comes Mighty Coconut, a team of artists and 3D modelers and developers who are passionate about the projects they come and partner with to produce. These are these two people that gave me this tour were clearly big fans of Wallace and Gromit to begin with, and they approached the entire work that they're faced with the same way that a Disney designer would approach a new land. So if you go back, 15 years now, one of my first articles about VR, I wrote for the Orange County Register. And for that article, Disney brought me out to their Imagineering headquarters in LA and took me to a room where they had one of those caves set up with a bowler hat you would put on your head with trackers on it, and it would track your head movements as you walked around this space. And what they had was Cars Land. So Cars Land was this brand new land at the time, just built for Disney parks, and the Disney engineers all explained to me, this allows us, their VR hat that you're wearing right now, and the ability to see around your space with it, gives you the ability to see what the land will look like before it is built. And Disney has been doing this for a very, very long time. They'll bring all the executives into like a cart. You could put 6 people in a little cart in the middle of the room, and they would just sit in chairs, and they would wear the hats, or one person would wear the hat, and then you set up the whole scene to run people through the ride before it's actually open. And while they're sitting in that seat, you would feel completely immersed in the ride that's displaying on all these screens around you. And you go around the ride, and when you reach the top of the ride, you look over and see out in the distance, oh, there's actually a view of the street. right?
Yeah.
When you get to the top of the road, and they realize, oh, we've actually got to put a mountain out there in between the
Yeah.
view of the street and the person so that we can keep this illusion alive while you're inside of a Disneyland park that you're in Cars Land, so to speak. So that was one of the first articles I wrote about VR before I got obsessed a few years later and realized, oh wait, the folks at Oculus do have a path to affordable all-day VR. And here we go full circle. And what I see out of Mighty Coconut and Walkabout Mini Golf is this realization, the system that they've got built where every 6 weeks or so they're able to turn out another course for you to go and buy the DLC, check it out, and see this new immersive landscape. But what we're seeing here is Mighty Coconut has figured out how to do what the Disneyland people were doing at the cost of hundreds of millions of dollars of investment to build a physical land for Star Wars or for Cars Land. What they've done is they've got a couple dozen artists who are experts in VR, who genuinely love putting on the VR headset and sharing the beauty of what they're doing with others. And they're going and building together in VR and building all, literally placing the blocks right in front of them while another person from the design studio is placing another block. And then they're walking through the space and realizing all those things that I talked about earlier, right? When you turn a corner, you should be surprised by something new. And I focus on it so much because uh, I would love to see other developers
Big time.
listen to what Mighty Coconut is doing, to see this level of creativity, this idea that if you aren't, it's tragic to see these devs who clearly aren't invested in putting headsets on and the experience of doing these things, to see them repeat the mistakes over and over and over again of traditional flat screen design. Well, we've got an entire tour playlist over on UploadVR.com where you can go through pretty much the design history of Walkabout Mini Golf and see them explain why they're making all of these choices. So it's almost like a VR Design 101 class if you
Yeah.
go and watch their videos. So,
Well, I mean, it's obvious that their passion shows through as well. I mean, you talk about that. If you're developing a VR game, put on a VR headset, get in your game. I mean, especially if it's something you're passionate about. I loved what you just said about them being in there as a team, almost like construction workers. Just building it, collaboratively inside the world, and the fact that they are bringing us these just incredible fan serviced licensed what am I going for here, licensed titles like the Labyrinth, like the another one that you didn't mention. I love the Meow Wolf. That is like one of the trippiest courses I've ever played in mini golf, in real life or in virtual. So
yeah, and I'm seeing people responding in our comments, aspiring VR devs out there realizing that this resource is out there, that Mighty Coconut has done this, and um, let's see here. I'm seeing people that we've had this in our comments before. People fantasizing about what courses they would love to see. Back to the Future. Oh my goodness, Back to the
oh,
Future is such a
I mean, I'm
beautiful
just gonna
idea.
say Star Trek. I'd love to see a Star Trek course.
Yep.
So,
Well, and I know we'll see if Mighty Coconut ever takes some outside investment because Disney typically
oh yeah,
protects their properties pretty carefully, and they only invest in you. Like they'll invest in you, and then they'll give you access to their properties. They did that with the Void.
yeah,
The Void got access to a bunch of Disney properties, so you could do Star Wars and Wreck-It Ralph and a bunch of other experiences at Void locations. But all those things really popped up after the investment happened. I don't know if I want to see a Walkabout Mini Golf and Mighty Coconut too much, too close to any major studios. It's funny. Like I'm not asking the question anymore. I did ask the question during one of these tours a couple years ago now, of whether they've had any discussions about acquisition, and
yeah.
I would not be surprised to see uh, those sorts of discussions coming out of all the major companies. Netflix, Meta, You go
Oh,
down the
big time.
list, Disney, it seems like it would be a match made in heaven for a lot of those companies to have a company like Walkabout. But to all those fans out there who don't want to see the magic go away, I think the developers are very aware that they could lose some of that magic by going and tying themselves too close to a major property out there. Um, and I know that the devs of this game are very much looking for courses that will surprise you. That the moment you see it, you go, "Yes! Oh my gosh, that's an art collective, very psychedelic." Are we back? I think we're back. Let's see. Let us know.
And we're back. Might have been a slight technical glitch there, guys, and if so, we do apologize.
Yep.
But
Let's see. I'm seeing what Give me a DLC based on The Road, where by hole 18 everyone's just extremely depressed. So messed
that
up.
would be horrible.
And the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. Oh boy, I love that one. I'm gonna bring up The Shining one is really interesting because there was a question in our comments about whether Wallace and Gromit are animated in here, and that's one little thing that it's just a beautiful touch from these animators and these developers at what they've done. They've carefully animated Wallace and Gromit so that they look like claymation characters when you're in VR. You look and move around smoothly. It's perfectly comfortable to you. But when you look at Wallace, he seems to be moving his newspaper and looking around exactly like he does in his animated films. And it's beautiful. It's really, really well done. But the other thing that I don't think many people will be aware of, and Mighty Coconut, correct me if I'm wrong on the trick you did here. If you go back about, I don't know, 5 or 6 courses, they did a spooky course. They did a Halloween course that was a haunted house, basically. And in that haunted house, spoiler alert for those that haven't seen it, there are these creepy little dolls that will haunt you through the as you're going through the course. You'll see the doll in one area, and then you go on, and the doll has disappeared behind you, and then reappears in front of you at random spots through the level. It's terrifying. It's creepy. It was a wonderful addition. But what you're seeing there is a very, very clever addition to the Mighty Coconut toolset in showing you new things wherever you go. So tracking the gaze of the viewer and then removing elements from the scene and then putting them in another space so that you can have, in this case, Wallace and Gromit appear at different spots throughout the house as you're progressing through it. Disney, to use the Disney analogy, I believe Disney is famous for only allowing Mickey Mouse to be in one location in the park at any given time, so that you and all your children know that Mickey Mouse is, you don't have that conversation right in the middle of Disneyland of why was Mickey on Main Street and then Mickey is also over here, right? It's the same discussion you might have about Santa Claus, right? I remember wondering very carefully why Santa Claus was at the local mall and also able to be at the North Pole at the same time, building all of his gifts. It's a very good question for your parents, for any kids that are out there wondering. But it's yeah, sorry, whoops. But like what I'm getting at here is it's this little trick, right, that you might not ever notice that then they can do everything with it. It was just a scary little doll in one world.
It was creepy.
And then by the time they got to Wallace and Gromit, they used that tool to tell better stories, to let these characters follow you around, and yeah, very, very cool.
So here's a question, actually, because I have not played this course yet, and I'm kind of wondering if it's because that is the animation style in Wallace and Gromit. But Fluke Rogi here says the frame rate of those two characters is really jarring to me. Everything else in the Wallace and Gromit course looks so nice and smooth, but the main two characters look out of place animation-wise.
that's by design,
I
and
think
that
that would be
is
by design because that's
yeah,
how
that is
the animation is. It's
yeah. So 100% by design. If I think you're like, I don't know if you're viewing it as a negative or a positive, but I would view it as a major positive. It
major
is
positive.
supposed to look out of place because that is how they look in their animated style. They drop frames. They move mechanically, like
It's
because
almost
of the
stop motion.
claymation.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's what
claymation.
it
Yeah.
is, right? So it's a different frame rate than you're experiencing comfortably. You go through a lot of their other courses. They try to break the rules at very specific times of various things. So, like if you go back to the labyrinth course, you get into a deep hole in the labyrinth course, and they mess around with gravity. Well, you go a couple whole courses later, and they've done the upside down course that messes with gravity across the entire course. I think that the animation style worked extraordinarily well for me.
Yeah.
I really did feel like I was getting to see those characters face to face.
I would feel odd that if I was looking at Wallace and Gromit and they were moving smoothly, to me that would seem out of place. It would look
Mm.
strange, you know. So
Yeah, so Mighty Coconut confirming that yes, we agreed with Aardman to match the low frame
yes,
rate on certain characters and inventions to emulate the claymation. Yep. So yes, just confirming that for our audience that it is very different. And Big saying, I want to see normalization of mixing styles in XR. I like that a lot, right? There's a lot of
mm-hmm.
people are put off of Walkabout Mini Golf. I get, I'm not, I wouldn't say a lot of people. Some people claim to be put off by the low poly style, and I don't, I think it's a minority of the audience out there that would make that claim, but it's the same group of people that would be put off by the look of Horizon Worlds
Yeah,
or the look of even mobile VRChat, right? You don't get the same quality out of mobile VRChat that you get out of PC VRChat, and it matters to a lot of people, and we understand that. Um, but I think this is, let's see, is there any comments that we should talk about before we move
there's
on to the
one
next
that
one?
might get us off topic a little bit, but I thought it was interesting. Let me see if I can find it here again. Okay, it was the future here is asking. He says, "What are some interesting narrative tools that you can use in VR? I've heard devs have to work extra hard because people are impatient with traditional cutscenes." And you know, I can see that, and I think to answer that question, what I want to see is I am in VR. I am in this story. I'm a part of this story. So keep me a part of that story. If a cutscene is going to happen, make it natural as if it's happening around me, and I'm not necessarily interacting with it, but it's happening around me. It's like I don't think that anytime it's not traditional flat 2D gaming anymore, where it's okay to just break my immersion by throwing a screen in my face that I'm supposed to watch a video for a minute and then go back.
We
So
had,
I think to speak to that is devs need to just realize that we are a part of the story. We're not watching the story anymore.
yeah, like
So
the example in my mind would be what is it, Metal Gear Solid 3 or 4? I can't remember which one was the one that just had 8 hours or something of
mhm.
cutscenes, just a ridiculous number. And if you imagine playing that game in VR, you would have put on the headset to have
Yes.
embodiment, to have, those guns in your hand, or to, physically crawl maybe
Mhm.
underneath the cars and stuff. But then you have to spend 30 minutes just sat back and watching a TV in VR. Why wouldn't I take the headset off and just watch the TV and,
Exactly.
have my
Mr.
dinner
Mr.
during
Mycelium
that?
hat nails it. And actually, I didn't even know why I didn't. My brain didn't go to this because it was the very first game to ever incorporate it. We need Half-Life 2 style cutscenes where it is just happening in the world. And I'm literally in the world and I'm messing around, but these characters over here having conversations. It makes me feel more present in your world if you add life to it that way and keep me included and never take me out. So,
And I think I would love to see. I would love to know what is on Mighty Coconut's schedule for the next 2 years. In fact,
yes.
they have. Because I've been following this. I've been hearing them sort of building out their timeline further and further into the future of the courses that they're building because they are doing such a stellar job at delivering on what they say they're going to deliver for these
Yeah.
partners. They're building up a roster and a timeline here that is very robust going out into the future of new surprising courses. And I mean, I think you could argue Wallace and Gromit is, I mean, you've got Elvis Presley coming in 2025, which I guess that would be a bigger name uh, historically than Wallace and Gromit, but you're building to modern projects that have a lot of love in them. It seems like they're building to bigger and bigger things. So I would
I
not
agree.
be surprised to see more surprising courses. I saw someone wanting a Jurassic Park course out there. I know the devs
Ooh,
themselves have,
that would be good.
like, it's not. The more I think about it, and I know the devs at Mighty Coconut think this way too. They're thinking about mini golf as like a format or a way of, uh, like, yeah, it's a format for them almost in which to throw anything else at, and it works exceedingly well. But it's like, just conceptually speaking, it kind of makes sense, right? You've got a game that is played on a flat surface, and all you have to do is decide what you want to, like, what kind of gameplay you want to play out on that
Yeah.
flat surface, and it just works exceedingly well. It's almost like, you don't have the space. I saw a commenter, Dunadim, who's a big Golf Plus fan, and Golf Plus is, of course, the game that has one-to-one scale models of many famous courses that you can go out and play in the real
Just got a
world.
big
So if
update
you're,
too. Yeah,
yeah,
new
if you're
course
a
was added.
major golf fan, there's no replacement for being able to go and experience 18 holes of golf on a course that would take you 6 months and several $1,000s to book for yourself. You could do that at home instantaneously for just a couple dozen dollars, and then have a whole bunch of friends in headsets as well. The math just starts getting bigger. That's the ball rolling thing. Like, it's getting bigger. It's a
Mhm.
snowball of effect that's happening with Walkabout, where I'm feeling these courses get bigger. The artists themselves are packing more artistic quality into each course that they do, and you can feel the growth building, and it's a beautiful story. So
Yeah.
we'll keep on that, and of course,
I was going to say,
please go
because we
watch
will
that video.
snowball if we continue talking
Yeah,
about Walkabout, but this is both a game that we both love, so we could talk about it for hours. But we've got some other things to talk about this week. So I
people want
think, what
Alien and
was
Hitman
next
too.
on the schedule here?
We've got VR chat, so we're gonna go
VR
straight
chat.
into your
Oh,
VR chat
it's
world.
it's it's time for VR chat. So, where have I been in the metaverse this week? That was a question from the beginning of the show. So, as usual, for those of you who might be tuning into the show today that are not following it, we do have an awesome article series going on our site right now, where each week I am picking 3 of the community recommended VR chat worlds or destinations inside the platform to visit. I am visiting those in purely private instances. We are just looking at the worlds, not the platform, not the community, just the technical, brilliance and beauty of some of these creations that are in there. So this week I visited 3 really awesome worlds, and we'll start with the first one, which is Beyond a Bit. And Beyond a Bit actually is kind of a social hub that then turns into a musical experience. So you start out and you're kind of in this field of these really awesome, like iridescent, almost neon blades of grass, and you see this structure, and you enter the structure and find a key. And excuse me, once you find the key, it unlocks this really, really cool musical performance that goes on. Then after that, I visited, and I'm going to try to say this. I know I asked you about the pronunciation, Namuanki. I think I got
Yeah,
that one right.
you got it. Yeah.
Namuanki. All right, thank you. The Texan didn't come out today. So Namuanki is one of those that is just, oh wow. Okay, so this world was actually created by an Academy Award winning visual artist named Kevin Mack. And if you're not familiar with his work, one of the most awesome computer generated movies from many years ago starred Robin Williams, and it was basically he dies and he goes to heaven, and Kevin Mack did that. And God, what is the name of that movie? I'm trying
What
to.
dreams may come.
What
Yeah.
dreams may come. Thank you. It just slipped my mind for a minute. So obviously, seeing that, this guy is all about color and just texture and just beauty. And one of his big things, if you go back on our site, this is a video that you linked to me. We have a kind of a video of him where he describes this world himself, and he talks about how he loves the ocean and clouds and just natural scapes. So he created this just amazing world that is just that. You climb rocks, you dive in the ocean, you find these mythical beings that then can take you into some really trippy experiences. So if you are into that kind of stuff, I highly recommend that you take a trip to Namuanki the next time that you're in VRChat. And we ended up my exploration this week by taking a stroll through Fog Forest. And Fog Forest is basically, I don't know if you ever get that just sense of disconnection when there's a good fog in the real
Mm.
world, and it really brings that same feeling home. So you're walking down this path, there is kind of like a parkway path, there's some benches and some trees off to this side and some nature going on, but just this dense fog is covering everything, and it just gives you that surreal feeling. And then you'll find little pathways that kind of venture off into the forest, and as you go deeper it gets darker and darker, and just a really visceral exploration
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
so
so I want to go back to some of these comments here and just address them. So Toddy asking for what tools that I think Mighty Coconut uses. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mighty Coconut out there, but I believe the missing tool, the tool that will help any devs out there, is Gravity Sketch. So go get yourself
yeah.
Gravity Sketch, play with that, see what you can do with it. I believe that is one of the first steps that Mighty Coconut does. That is what I discussed. Is their co-editing tools where they're able to go and place all of the geometry that they're going to have, all the objects, all the placement. They use that app, I believe, to get the lay of the land, to set it all into place, to get those sight lines in place, so they understand how everything is going to to fall out. The Namawanki one I need to call out, and yes, you can go find a tour of this with the creator, Kevin Mack. He is a very skilled artist, and what I notice in his work, as well as the work of other regular viewers of the show, is there's a certain class of artists. People who really understand uh, art and how it works, who just don't want to be constrained to one or two
Mm-hmm.
light sources. They
Yes.
don't want to spend years of their life optimizing their their work to run on a mobile chipset. And so they throw all of their time and money and effort behind building something that can have multiple light sources, can have a lot of it can run on a range of machines that maybe they optimize a little bit on PC so that it runs on low class hardware. But if you are able to unlock the high end version, suddenly you've got multiple light sources and really detailed surroundings. Well, Kevin Mack strikes me as one of those artists that just didn't seem interested in doing that work for
Mm-hmm.
Meta or Facebook, but also just for mobile devices because it so pares down what you're able to do. I saw a couple experiments, I think, on mobile there from them, but if you go into Namawanki and play that experience and look through it, like he's got he's got spots where he's got experimental music, I think,
Oh
that he
God, it's
made
beautiful.
from like the 80s, and he's ported it into his experience, and you get visions from creatures that are alien and bizarre whenever you go and interact with these items. It is very spacey. Like if you want to go far out and see
Caves.
something strange in VR, that's a great experience. The sky whale that you meet at the beginning of that experience, he comes
Mm-hmm.
up and talks to you, and he's shimmering with colors, and it's a beautiful, beautiful experience. You dive under the water and find an undersea cavern down there with
That's what I'm saying. The
like a fire
caves were
god.
just, oh my God, the caves are amazing looking, and
Yeah.
the music, and I mean, Ian, you're nailing the experience right there, and definitely, Namuanki's not gonna be something that's going to run on standalone. I mean, it's just, you've got too much fidelity in this experience to truly do it justice by a mobile chipset at this point. At this point, we never know.
Mr. Mycelian in our comments saying you should make a VRChat world playlist with links to all of these worlds. It may prevent people from having to engage with the community. That is a brilliant idea, and it is not the first time we have heard that idea. It is a excellent idea, and we're stay tuned. Please become a member of UploadVR.com.
Please
support our work directly, and we're going to see if we can accomplish something along those routes for some of our members. I think we're ready to move on and talk about Into the Radius. So people are asking where the PSVR massive sale coverage is. We'll cover that on Thursday. That's a good discussion to have on VR Download, where David Heaney and I will be in this studio again on Thursdays. We'll undoubtedly have a ton more news to get into on that show. Between just last news, the news that's happening today, you can go and see the latest on UploadVR.com right now. That sale has moved a massive number of PSVR 2 units in a very short amount of time. A very big day. And then, of course, it's all coming right before they launch the adapter for PSVR 2. So we're just
I was going to say, the tie-in to the PC VR adapter is just so close. And, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And, I know you guys are going to talk about it, but I will say, cost matters. I mean, look at that. We see a $200 reduction on this headset, and now it is selling like hotcakes. You can't keep them in stock. So,
yep. So tune in on Thursdays when David Heaney and I get into the broader industry news. We try to focus this on games, the way people talk and way people play in VR, and the artistry behind it, the difficulties, the things that we'd like to see played in VR in the future. And then on Thursday, we talk about those broader industry trends that are shaping the industry from the outside. So let's talk about Into the Radius 2. Don, why don't you bring us up to speed on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So Into the Radius 2 is a title that a lot of people have been waiting for. I mean, Into the Radius kind of had a rocky start when it first came out, but definitely became one of the more go-to titles for a lot of people wanting that survival, kind of almost like a Stalker, Shadows of Chernobyl kind of experience, in my opinion. So we have a good review of it on the site, and our reviewer basically had hit it on the nail. They said that it is an interesting, the first one was an interesting but flawed experience, and that's exactly how I felt about Into the Radius. I couldn't get into it. There was just too much polish that was missing, in my opinion. So Into the Radius 2 looking a little bit better. Basically it's going to be the same survival gameplay that we got in the first one. 14 realistic weapons to use. You're on your own, so it is survival. You're out there. Basically it is going to have a smaller location right now in the early access. As they expand that out, it's going to have 2-player co-op at launch. So that is cool that you're going to be able to get in there and actually explore the wastelands with a friend. So definitely one that I've got my eye on. I have not, checked it out personally yet because, well, like I said, the first one I don't know, it was kind of hard for me to get into, but we shall see.
Yeah, and it looks like Beck put up a multiple choice question in our comments that is blocking the other commenters.
Yes.
But let us, as soon as you end that poll, I think the comments.
So I think that's based on comments that we were getting, that you're either a little overdressed or a little underdressed for Gamescast. With the full
that's
suit
right.
there.
I forgot to change it. So one thing
you got to be cool, man. You got to have a T-shirt.
I forgot to get a screenshot of this, but the same question that Beck put in our show last week. Do you use smooth turning or do you use stick? Do you use the snap turning? Which of those do you use? And we had about 50-50 in our audience. A little bit, I think we're on one side of that, but about 50-50 saying that they use smooth turning versus stick-based snap turning. And the same poll was put out by the devs of Boneworks and Bone Labs. So Stress Level Zero put out almost the exact same question to their audience over on X, Twitter, and they got a completely different ratio out of their thousands and thousands of people who are in that audience. And it was massively skewed, I believe, towards the smooth turning in that game. Now, I'm not going to make any commentary on which is best overall, because what Stress Level Zero has proven is that they have tuned their audience for people who are ready for that type of movement, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there are they've proven that there are thousands upon thousands of gamers out there who want to go into the settings and turn it from snap turning to smooth turning as their preferred method of getting around a space, because they can stomach all of that. And of course, Boneworks and Bone Lab are like roller coasters in VR. They are massively moving experiences. They throw you around their environments quite a lot with all of your movement. That's not true of other games like Walkabout Mini Golf, which uh, you have flying in there, but you don't access it on as a basis. I think
Right.
the defaults in a game like Walkabout tend to be teleport and stick-based snap turning. Those two things tend to be a wonderful default in most games, but that's not true of all games. And Stress Level Zero's games prove that out. That if you market to the audience correctly, you warn them up front you need to be advanced and be ready for advanced VR concepts, you can self-select for a bunch of people that are gonna pick that experience. Now, that again, you put on the headset, and 30 minutes later you feel like taking the headset off because you have a massive splitting headache and don't feel great. Well, that's the risk of turning things like that on for people by default. So,
Yeah.
as Don has been carefully doing on a lot of his notes, is he tries to note apps that are missing any one of these options, right? Like Don, you've got
Well,
certain
I think, yeah,
preferences.
because I think, I'm sorry, I just, as a player, just give us a choice, and there's a great comment right here from Ghost Shot. Physical turning is also an option.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm going to say that if you want to go deeper down the rabbit hole in virtual reality games, move with your own body, be present in the game. Don't rely on a stick. That's not what VR is all about, as Ian spins around here. But it is just one of those things. I know it kind of hit a nerve last week when we put that poll out. Because people are still kind of deeply divided on this whole snap turn versus smooth turn, full locomotion versus teleport locomotion. My thing is, and that's why I put it in, to my articles. That's why I mention it. Is developers, why not just give us a choice right off the bat? Just every time you start a game, I love it when a game starts and it asks me, how do I want to move in this game? Before
Mm-hmm.
the game's even started, I hit start. It says, okay, first of all, what do you want your locomotion to be? What do you want this? Let's set it all up. Let's get it out of the way. And then you go play. And then I'm not going to have any friction point from locomotion because I am now doing it the way that I prefer.
Well, I was showing people were looking at my dance. What I was showing was I'm in a swivel chair, and
It's a swivel
that
chair.
gives me the best of both worlds. So, as someone
Smooth.
who is extremely uncomfortable by the smooth turning, I physically turn my body. And if you go watch our videos, like the Namawanki tour or my tour of Walkabout Mini Golf's
Mhm.
latest Wallace and Gromit course, I'm sitting in this swivel chair and I'm rotating my body physically through the space, because even for viewers who are watching it, it is more comfortable and immersive for them to feel me physically moving
Oh,
than to snap move or to smooth move. Like it feels even the smooth turning feels a little bit unreal. Like it feels like you're
mhm.
suddenly in a car or whatever, going from place to place rather than moving at a set, slow walking sort of speed in various directions. And that we encounter this. Uh, yeah, so
Well, that's
there's
a
this
good question.
good question of, does Snap give you an advantage for multiplayer shooters? And that's difficult because what I was gonna explain is each dev has to decide kind of where they draw the line on their work, right? And they have to have a vision of what their end project is going to look like, even from the beginning. Otherwise, you get 6 months in and realize, oh no, I need to actually uh, support a different way of movement in order to allow, I don't know, climbing.
Yeah.
That's a classic one, right? You go into Half-Life Alyx, you have an option, I believe, of physically climbing or pressing a button as soon as you get to the ladder and teleport to the top of the stairs. Well, that's a massively difficult thing to have to develop for yourself as an indie dev. If you're an indie dev doing this thing on your own, you kind of have to choose your battles.
It's a house of
And
cards, yeah. You got to
yeah,
build it in from the beginning. I mean, it's
and so with shooters, shooters are such a tricky area. I'm like, you're talking about, when you talk about shooters, you're talking about gamers that are willing to hold the controllers in special ways in order to give themselves just a little bit of an advantage
mhm.
over their competition. And it's such a niche. It's a big category of games. It's a well-loved category of games. But I think in VR, it's still a niche. It's still a small subset of the things you can do in VR. And like holding a gun, we're using controllers that are shaped like guns. You've got a trigger on
The
them,
trigger, yeah.
and you feel like using it like its most obvious use case is a gun. But we're in this transitional period here where the controllers are becoming the optional input for VR, and you go back to this having hands. Well, we had what, hundreds of thousands of years of human history
Mhm.
using just our hands to manipulate tools before we got to guns as a really effective tool for hurting things. That's a lot of things you can do with sticks and just everything else you can hold in your hands. And your movement schemes flow from that, right? Like we see a lot of experimentation with how do we get gestures that let you move in all these
Oh,
different
and I
ways.
think, and I kind of going back to the core of what started this discussion, I don't think that games should allow those mixed movement methods, especially if it is a multiplayer shooter. Okay, so if I'm going to go into a server, it's going to be a smooth movement, smooth turning server only. Or, because I especially teleport. I know a lot of games restrict that, but I would hate to be in a competitive shooter and have somebody just blipping and teleporting all over the damn map. I'm trying to shoot you, and now you blip over there and you blip over there. And it's like, it's like, so I don't think you're going to see a lot of shooters that even allow for that mixed type of locomotion.
Well, Fast Lawyer's question or comment, there's no game with any depth that is not designed for smooth locomotion. You cannot move for long distance in video games
Mm-mm.
without it. Oh, I'm gonna. I don't.
Well,
It's the worst example of depth. Like I'm not gonna. This isn't depth, but the lab from Valve back in 2016, you would teleport from place to place inside the lab, and then enter a stationary experience
on the
inside
board.
of each of the destinations you got to. So you could teleport over to the bow and arrow experience, and then stand in a very small little square and bow and arrow hundreds of enemies as they're coming to you, and then when you finish your round, you teleport back out of that world, and then you go try Zortek, I think is what it was
I think
called,
Mr.
or one of the other
Mycelium
ones.
hits it on the nail, and I think I said this last week actually when we were having the same conversation. Hyperdash does a great job of mixing teleport with smooth locomotion, and that's what I want to see. Is like again giving us options, but I don't mind the mixed method where I have smooth on one stick, and then if I say press in, and then it gives me the teleport reticle, and then I can teleport when I want to for those if I want to jump long distances, things like that. So.
Yeah, and I like Onikazi's sort of pushback on that is whatever I like equals depth is sort of the pushback, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what I
Yeah.
was getting at with my mention of the lab is, yeah, it depends, right? Like, and what I would love to see to that point and to your example is, it would be really cool to see a game that balances out the two things. Like if you've got teleport in the world and if you know that it gives you an advantage over smooth movers, what would it look like to balance those two things out? Like what if you could only have, like what if it was it hurt your gameplay somehow to move in a way that you prefer, right? So you choose to move with smooth, but you only get access to certain weapons in the world, or you choose to move with teleport, but you'll get a different set of weapons to
Yeah.
use. and they figure out a way to balance those things out. I would love to see that that explored. I want to talk about this next one, Don. Are we ready to talk about you driving an RC car?
Yes, we are. Oh man, this was so fun. Okay. So so for those of you who read the article, I know I like wax nostalgic a lot, but as a kid growing up in the 80s in Texas, I loved going to Radio Shack on the weekends to play with RC cars. That was like my jam. I mean, I couldn't get enough of RC cars and RC trucks. And, and as I stated in the beginning of the article, well, 40 some odd years later, now Radio Shack's barely around anymore. And I'm a lot older and I don't play. But so Ian set me up, and this company, Cobotics, sent me a RC car, the Real Racer XR car, and you actually drive this thing from your headset. And it is the most interesting, cool, slightly janky, but cool experience that I've done in a while. So basically, what you do is you get the RC car. It does come with a typical controller here. So you basically can drive it in as a standard RC car, but the magic happens when you download the Real Racer XR app to your Quest. So it works on Quest 2, Quest 3, or Quest Pro. And what it does is it actually puts you in the driver's seat of the car using gyro assisted steering. So you're not just sitting there steering with the sticks on your touch controllers. You are literally reaching forward, grabbing the steering wheel, and actually steering and driving this little car. Seeing the world in that massive perspective that you get from the camera was just trippy. That's the best word. Chasing my dogs around the house, doing jumps out in the driveway. And what I think I'm kind of going full circle with by talking about Radio Shack in the beginning, it was the first time, Ian, in so many years, I truly felt like a kid again. I was just having fun. And
Yep.
it was so cool to me to do that.
Yeah, so the commenters, of course, calling out Mario Kart Live Home
Yes.
Circuit. That's a few years old on the Switch. Very same concept. And I've been messing around with various setups here with my Switch, trying to figure out what's the best way I can bring in my existing gaming library into VR in various ways. And that's a whole 2-3 hour segment where I could walk you through all the tools I'm using to explore and the different benefits and drawbacks of all of them. But that Mario Kart home circuit, you had these little cars. They were either Mario or Luigi. You could have both connected and race two cars against one another. And you would hope to have a very robust Wi-Fi connection to make this work. Back when I had both these cars, I got them for my kids to race around the house together, and it was really, really cool to have a pair of Switches paired up to one of these cars that is fairly inexpensive. And then the way it worked was because the camera was so wide field of view, they had nailed the wide field of view of it just right. It actually felt like you were rocketing around pretty quickly on these cars, even though they're only moving at a very, very slow speed around your floor. And occasionally I would see this Wi-Fi connection issue. Well, as I've been messing with Vision Pro in my house and trying to get Quest 3 enabled in all sorts of ways, I've been turning on things like Steam Link and AirPlay in multiple oddball ways to explore different scenarios, like to bring my Switch into VR and try to enable that connection. So, like, hypothetically, you could use something like AirPlay on a Vision Pro with your HDMI fed into an iPad, and then AirPlay your view of a Switch into a Vision Pro and drive around your car in VR. But it would add so much latency. It would
There'd be so
add
much friction. Yeah.
Yeah, you would be, yeah,
What?
you would be dealing with your Wi-Fi connection.
Well, even
What
this, I
friction
mean,
did you experience
well, I was
though?
going to say,
Yeah.
even this had like, if you read the article, you'll see I have a whole section there called the connection conundrum, and well, it is. It's that is the biggest downfall of this is that I was constantly losing Wi-Fi connection. And one other thing that I noticed, especially when I was outside, you can create a direct Wi-Fi connection between the headset and the car. And once you're away from other interfering signals, the minute I took it out in the street, out in the driveway, and got away from my house, that connection got a lot more solid. But then I ran into a whole other problem in the fact that I could drive the car about 90 feet away from me and it would lose connection. But because I'm in the car, I can't walk forward without walking out of the box. And it's really weird when you see just this weird green box hanging in mixed reality that's the cockpit of a car that you have to then walk back into. So you're having to run down the street, reset your connection, then the car jumps to where you are. So that was one kind of big drawback. In the house, the Wi-Fi connectivity problems were real. And kind of going back to what you were talking about with the Mario Kart experience on the Switch, the one thing I really, really wish that this had was some gamification, because I know that at least had some AR elements, I believe, where you were driving the cars and
Yeah.
collecting things. Excuse me, allergies. In this one, you're just really driving the car. So, that right there kind of limits it a little bit for me. It is a very cool experience up front, and it is still the very cool. I'm finding, different things like making little ramps and different tracks. It does have 4-wheel drive, trying to do some different terrains and things like that. But at that point, it's like, okay, well, what do I really do with this now that I'm over the coolness of I'm driving the little car?
Yeah.
Where's the gamification? Where's the fun factor beyond the initial out of the box experience?
Yeah, so I love the people looking for the drone version of this.
Oh, me
I've
too.
seen already mixed reality drones where you pilot a drone that doesn't exist physically at all. You just take control of it and you drive it around your space in mixed reality, and it's just a mixed reality. It only exists in VR. There's nobody that sees anything else flying around your space. I, I I'll take it a step further. How cool it would be to see from the camera of your delivery as it comes to you. What would
Oh,
it
that would
like
be awesome.
if the driver of your drone could stream stream their flight as they're flying you your next game, right? You can imagine getting a little Switch 2 card delivered to you next year with a drone bringing this little lightweight thing straight to your front door. It would be 50 or 100 gigabytes stored within
Mm-hmm.
that little card, and you wouldn't have to wait however long your internet connection takes for that drone to go from Best Buy to your house. And what if you could stream that entire view the entire time? On this car, it's limited to 720p resolution,
Yes, I was
and
gonna.
it
Yeah.
is not stereoscopic. It is a flat image. So Don was very careful to note in his write-up that stereoscopic views, as well as a higher resolution, would probably be a major benefit for this whole mode of input. Of course, with the drone situation, you have FPV viewers. You have ready-made headsets that are specifically for, you've got an antenna built into the thing for ensuring that the connection between the 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 drone and your device never even lags for even a second. And we spent a lot of a lot of the earlier part of the show talking about the difference between smooth locomotion and the snap turning. Well, if you want to make people sick in VR, you give them a very wide field of view,
Oh, big time.
and you mismatch their motion in the real world from what they see in the movements in their screen in front of them. You could be playing Halo on a 110-inch screen right in front of you, and you will have a certain percentage of your audience that will get sick because the movement that they're seeing their character do on the Halo flat screen doesn't match the movement of their body. I'm one of those people that will get that way after a little while. Um, you've got a lot of different scenarios where this would be really, really cool. The one that always got me is if you've got a map of your room and the headset does have a map of the room, you could potentially give that map to the drone
Oh,
and
easily.
then give yourself a third person view of the drone as it's moving around the space.
Oh, that would be
that
cool.
that would perhaps, like, you could do vignetting to get yourself a little bit more comfortable, or put the thing up on a screen and put it over there so it's a little bit disconnected. But just, there's various cool ideas to make drones more comfortable, and it would be a good testing ground to see how do we get this to work for everyone, right? If
Yeah.
the person that gets inside the cockpit and sees a flat screen, if they get too sick, what if you gave them the 3D geometry and just let them feel like they're actually looking at this thing as it goes across?
And I
Um,
think it's bandwidth. I mean, it got brought up here. It's way up in the chat, but somebody was talking about how adding that higher resolution and adding the stereoscopic 3D and all of the other things that we've been talking about, we're already having connection issues. I mean, at this point, so we really need some jumps in you know, internet or Wi-Fi bandwidth before we're going to start to see any of that. I mean, just using like say an HDMI router. There, I've tried to beam a stereo signal over to an older stereo TV that I had, and you can beam a 1080p signal at 60 frames a second, but the minute you drop that second frame in there for the stereo, everything goes wonky. So,
yep.
yeah,
This is one of the reasons I've argued with David over on our other show, VR Download, that I think it would be a really amazing product if Apple decided to do a new router. They used to do their own routers back at the birth of wireless. To begin with, they had the Airport
hmm,
Express, Airport Extreme, and they even had the time
yeah,
capsules that
oh yeah,
merged some of the wireless with network attached storage. And they haven't shipped those for like a decade now. They've been out of business for a really long time. Um, I would love to see that come back, because as we have been messing with all of these systems, and like you doing an RC car is a good example. If you imagine more than one VR headset in your house, you're going to have a lot of people tossing wireless screens
mhm,
between their existing devices and wireless, and you need a smarter router at the hub of all this stuff if you're going to have even one person throwing screens around wirelessly around their house. But
yep,
imagine four of them, right? Imagine your entire house equipped with wireless, and you want this person's VR headset to stream their view to a TV, so that they can be monitored while they're inside VR and helped out. And then this person also wants to stream their video from a local network. Like, that is a lot of bandwidth, all rummaging around your local network that we need to be ready for.
oh, the struggle is real. I mean, yeah, that's why I went out and I ended up having to buy a tri-band router for my house. That way, I could literally give my headset a dedicated connection that wasn't susceptible to other interference on my network.
APU saying, I want Half-Life Alyx, but I can't afford a PC that can run it. We were just, if you've watched our VR download show,
Yep.
we had, and our interviews, we had an interview with Plutosphere. That was one of the studios, or a company that had built a way for you to rent basically a cloud PC and then run Half-Life Alyx on that, stream it to your headset, and you can enjoy uh, PCVR that way, with obviously lag and latency between you and the PC. But if you were close enough to the local network, or you were close enough to the server that's serving that to you, if you worked out your network locally well enough, you could get reasonably low latency out of it that would feel really good. They went out of business because they mistimed their startup, and they were denied the ability to do that service on the main Quest store.
Yeah.
So Meta has put in a rule in place that you have to have physical access to your PC in order to have that functionality in your Quest store app. Don, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the Alien Rogue Incursion trailer while I find a higher output battery for me, because I'm at 4%
Yeah.
here.
No, I was going to
Yeah.
say, I'm literally skirting battery as well as we approach the 1 hour and 20-minute mark here. But yeah, so obviously we saw this week the launch of the new Rogue, Alien Rogue Incursion trailer that reveals the protagonist for the game. And, you know, obviously we're still not seeing what I would consider a lot of true in-headset game footage, but what we're seeing in this new trailer has got me even more excited for this game. I love the Aliens franchise. I've always loved the Alien franchise. I actually have, in the spirit of showing my oldest daughter, who's now about to be 17, some of the movies that I grew up, I just showed her Alien. She is like now wanting to play Alien Isolation. I don't know why anyone would want to subject themselves. I am not squeamish about horror in any way, but Alien Isolation is literally the only VR game that has ever made me nope out and want to take a headset off. It was just terrifying. So I'm really hoping that we get more of that from Rogue Incursion. Oh, Ian, you're muted. Nope, nope.
Yeah,
There we go.
I put the mute button over disconnected from VR, so we have even more ways to mess up our muting in VR going forward. But yeah, this trailer got a lot of people really excited for this game. There was very, very high expectations. You go back to Alien Isolation, I remember terrifying people with that VR mod very early on. It was a stellar experience to go hide in a cabinet basically as the alien comes by and tries to listen for your movements. Just a stellar experience. That this is going to be a big.
I'm sorry, just real quick. I still to this day, and it's making me literally get goosebumps thinking about it. It's implanted a memory almost like in my head that I am reliving. But the alien coming into the room, I'm crouched behind a table. It walks to this side of the table, and we start slowly doing the dance around the table. And I'm like literally trying to be as quiet as I can so the thing doesn't see me or hear me, thinking that, oh my God, I'm about to do it. And like I'm doing the dance, and all of a sudden I'm like, where's the alien? And he comes right over the table at me. It was just ah.
Oh yeah, and of course there's the Alien movie coming out next month. And yeah, so they're trying to build back this franchise into something like it used to be, right? And it's going to be a big year for Alien fans, so I can't wait to see that one drop onto headsets later this year.
Did you see the viral marketing campaign stuff that started showing up yesterday on Twitter for Alien Romulus?
No, I haven't.
So they've got paid actors that are like literally out in public, like in public spaces. It may have been a theme park, I couldn't tell, but they all have face huggers on, and they're very realistic, and they're breathing, and like, and then this one guy's like the has a chest burster, and I mean these are all like super high quality effects, but they're happening with real people out in public, like where you're walking around, and it was interesting.
Yeah, can't wait to see both that movie. I've got my tickets for that one already worked out. Can't wait. And Onakazi mentioning good luck the rest of the world. I don't see the U.S. upgrading its internet infrastructure because we love the freedom of monopolies and duopolies. Yeah, I love that comment, just being silly. And then we've got a poll up there in our comments asking about scary games. Even internally on our staff, we have Don here that is willing to go and crap his pants, whereas I will not. Yeah, it's difficult, and I totally understand the folks that just cannot handle those things. I don't know if you guys can hear my cat. My cat is on my lap now.
I can hear your cat.
Purring.
Well, here's my thing though. Okay, so like I don't have a problem with horror games. Why? What is it about Alien Isolation? Because I'm not kidding. It's the one horror game that I've been in ever in VR that has literally made me want to take the headset off. And I was like, no, I can't take this anymore.
Interesting. Well, I wonder, so what was your experience with the Alien franchise? When did you see that one for the first time?
I guess first time I saw it was probably 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, so, and the original one, the first movie was Sigourney?
At the movies, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that was 79, but I think they re-released it in the 80s, and my dad took me to see it.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a very deep embedded thing for you, right? Like,
I could see that.
Do you have any childhood fears that were particularly upsetting to you?
No, not really.
Well, then we'll call the alien the xenomorph.
I guess.
One, right? Yeah. I remember I had early nightmares about what Predator. Predator was the one for me where I was watching Predator too young.
I tell you that mine was Jaws, because I grew up in a beach town, And my parents
Ooh.
took us to see Jaws at a drive-in movie. On a huge, first time I'd seen something on a screen that big. You know, we didn't have IMAX back then. And the next morning, they're like, "Hey, come on, we're going to Padre Island." I'm like, "Yeah, great." I'm like 10 years old. Now you're going to take me to the beach after I just watched this massive shark rip people apart.
We've
So,
got I like that poll up there from Beck asking about scary games, about 50-50,
yeah.
actually more than 50% saying that they don't want any scary games, and less than 50% saying that they are ready to crap their pants
Well,
in
again,
VR.
it speaks to the power of virtual reality. I mean, because I've never once in my entire life played a scary game on a 2D flat screen and had any sort of reaction to it other than, "Oh, that was neat. Oh, jump scare. But you do it in VR and all of a sudden the limbic system starts getting messed with, and you really actually have a true fight or flight response. So
Hmm. Well, I think that's the core of our discussion there. Any comments you want to call out there before we start to wrap up here? Thank you
Let's
to our
see
audience for the great
here.
discussion.
It was at San Diego Comic-Con that they were doing the realistic face huggers and chest bursters that I was
Okay,
talking
so
about.
the one I forgot to mention this. I think I mentioned on another show, but I should mention it here. Someone actually built an Alien experience a couple years ago that ran on Gear VR, and they had positional tracking hacked onto this low-powered system, and it was the silliest 3D model of the xenomorph you've ever seen. It was just very, very low poly, and they couldn't make it animate very believably, so it wasn't scary. But what they had done is they had built a platform on the ground that thumped really, really solidly
Okay.
when the alien dropped onto the path in front of you. So you had this massive effect where, like, you're looking around wondering if the alien's going, and then boom, it pops right in front of you, and you feel it sort of go up your legs into your body.
Hmm.
This very, very great haptic effect tied to this very low poly alien, and it was a very cool idea. But I think that I don't think that was a success. I think that they shut down that alien thing pretty quickly. Um, yeah, the future is saying you guys hiring for scary game reviewers. No, we are not right now.
I
But
got it covered for the moment, but
yeah, we are always going to be looking for how we can expand out and cover more of what's happening in VR. And yeah, Don has that for now. What is this? That is, oh gosh, you would bring up arachnophobia, Beck.
don't
Beck has
even
such
no.
power over us.
I
She
didn't
can
hear
do
that shit. That
anything.
was a comment straight to you, but yes. Oh, okay. So spiders are my thing. Okay, so I can take any horror in VR. I'm going to backtrack. That would kill me. I mean, I don't do with the spiders very well, so it's like I'm freaking out, like seeing them over my shoulder right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, it
I
brings up
mean,
real quick a note challenge. The spider sequences in note challenge are
yeah.
just, oh my god.
Oh, well, I think that's it for our show. Tune in to us on Thursdays with VR Download with David Heaney and I as we discuss the next steps in personal computing and the larger trends and biggest news of the week. We'll be back here on Tuesdays with Don Hopper as we get into the games and the ways we are playing in VR. I do want to make that pitch out one more time. Share out this link to others, get people
Please.
introduced to VR. We are trying our absolute best to make ourselves an accessible, easy place for new VR users to get the information they need, as well as for you, our audience, the people who know the ins and outs of VR, to get the latest information they need as well. And we're gonna see the future and really get a lot of people into VR, and get them out of those experiences that are going to turn them off of their headsets, right? Get them comfortable, let them know what the risks are if they go into, say, a public instance of VRChat, what they're going to experience if they see that versus what they might get out of a more comfortable, quieter space as a first time in VR. Marcellus Wilson, thank you for tuning in. And yeah, a lot of people here I see, oh gosh, Killer Clowns from Outer Space got a game recently, and yeah, gosh,
Killer
if
clowns.
Killer Clowns
Oh,
from Outer Space, that movie in particular, like
uh,
I don't have a big fear of clowns, but that movie and the way it portrays clowns is so phenomenal. That one
yes.
is deep down in my brain.
Cult
And
classic.
yep. Yeah, when is VR download again? So that should be
Thursday.
Thursday midday, we'll try to get our stream up for that so that people can predict that time a little bit more. Thank you to everyone for tuning in, and yeah, please become a member to support our work directly. We are going to try to pack in some more benefits over time to becoming a member. But just at its surface, the reason we do that is it gives you a way to support us directly. And if you read a lot of UploadVR.com articles, becoming a member will take away those ads when you're logged in. So you get that right out of the gate there. So thank you for the time, everyone. We will see you in the future.
See ya.